The Galactic Empire had waged war against humanity for decades, convinced that Earth's defiance was a temporary inconvenience. The Empire, vast and ancient, believed it had finally broken the human spirit. After years of costly campaigns and diplomatic maneuvering, the Empire delivered an ultimatum: surrender the three most dangerous human generals or face planetary annihilation. Earth, to the shock of the galaxy, agreed. They offered no resistance. The three generals, known across the stars for turning impossible battles into humiliating defeats for their enemies, were handed over with little protest. To the Empire, this was a final, public submission of a species they considered a threat. The demand had been a trap set by the Empire, but the humans surrendered too easily. The decision was broadcast to every corner of the galaxy. Earth's silence spoke volumes, but the Empire was too blinded by victory to hear the quiet calculations behind it. The capture of the three generals was paraded as the Empire's greatest triumph. These were the architects of resistance, the minds that orchestrated strategies alien tacticians couldn't decipher. The galaxy watched as the Empire charged them with fabricated war crimes. Entire systems tuned in as the trial began. It wasn't justice. It was theater. The verdict had been decided before the first word was spoken. Evidence was fabricated, testimonies staged. The humans made no effort to contest the charges. They offered no defense. They simply observed, responding only when questioned, their answers carefully chosen, their tone controlled, their expressions unreadable. The Empire's audience mistook their calm for resignation. Some mistook it for fear. None recognized it as deliberate patience. Throughout the trial, the generals made cryptic remarks. Small comments about positions, numbers, seemingly irrelevant observations about stellar routes and supply chain timings. The Empire's officials, certain of their superiority, dismissed these as the ramblings of defeated men. They failed to notice the subtle coordination taking place behind the words. Across the galaxy, human forces began to move quietly. Entire fleets vanished from long-range scans. Human diplomats began leaving their posts. Merchant ships altered their registered routes. None of these actions raised alarms. The Empire believed humanity was retreating in shame, stripping away its presence to avoid further humiliation. They believed the war was over. The Empire scheduled the execution to be held on Raxus Prime, the most secure megastation in Imperial territory. It was to be a public spectacle broadcast across every known system. Imperial commanders, council members, and planetary governors would attend, eager to witness the final submission of Earth's military leaders. It was to be the Empire's message to the galaxy: no one defies them and survives. Preparations were extensive. Security was suffocating. The generals were moved under the highest level of guard the Empire could muster. They were paraded through cities, marched past jeering crowds, displayed as trophies to a galaxy that had long awaited the fall of humanity's finest warriors. As the day of the execution approached, strange reports began surfacing at the edges of the Empire's territory. Entire human colonies went dark. Communication hubs stopped responding. Patrol fleets assigned to monitor Earth's borders disappeared from their designated positions. Imperial intelligence dismissed these incidents as technical errors or cowardly retreats. No investigation was deemed necessary. The Empire's focus was on the upcoming spectacle. The galaxy would soon watch the end of the last human resistance. The generals walked calmly to the execution platform. Their steps were measured, their posture relaxed. They exchanged brief words with their guards, who found their composure unsettling. Their eyes, sharp and calculating, betrayed no fear. The Empire's commanders overlooked it, consumed by their own narrative of dominance. They did not see the precision, the discipline, the quiet certainty in the way the generals carried themselves. The Empire had won, they told themselves. Humanity was finished. Even as they stood at the heart of the megastation, The generals continued to speak in coded phrases, numbers, patterns, fragmented sentences, meaningless to their captors but clear signals to those listening. Across the galaxy, those who understood the language began their final preparations. Human forces positioned themselves with surgical precision. Stealth fleets moved into unguarded sectors. Special units embedded within Imperial infrastructure activated silent protocols. Earth's remaining generals, far from broken, were orchestrating a strike the Empire could not yet imagine. Imperial intelligence noticed minor anomalies. Certain ships had failed to report in. A few automated defense satellites had gone offline. Supply manifests showed inconsistencies, but none of it was prioritized. The Empire believed the war was over. They believed Earth was finished. Reports were buried beneath the logistical chaos of organizing a galaxy-spanning broadcast. Dissenting voices within the Empire, those who urged caution, were dismissed as cowards clinging to old fears. The Empire's arrogance had led them here. They had built the perfect trap. But it was not theirs. The moment they demanded the surrender of the three generals, the pieces had begun to move. Earth had given them exactly what they wanted, because the cost of losing those generals publicly was nothing compared to the consequences the Empire was about to face. Every step the Empire had taken to ensure the success of the trial, the transportation, and the execution had been anticipated. Every security measure had been calculated. The Empire believed they were in control, but they were following a script written by their captives. Across Imperial space, human assets activated in perfect sequence. The galaxy remained unaware that the very fabric of the Empire's communication and defense infrastructure had been quietly compromised years earlier. The generals had known they would one day be captured. They had planned for it. What the Empire saw as the collapse of human resistance was in fact the final stage of humanity's most dangerous strategy. The Empire had gathered its most powerful leaders, its most critical tacticians, its highest-ranking officials, all in one place, under the assumption that the war was over. The generals did not resist as they were chained, did not speak as the charges were read aloud one final time. They simply waited, calculating the precise moment when the entire operation would converge. The Empire's guards, oblivious to the growing silence in their own security channels, led them forward. The broadcast reached every corner of the galaxy. Billions watched as the countdown to the execution began. The galaxy prepared to witness the fall of Earth's final warriors. The countdown reached 0. The broadcast streams abruptly cut to static. Across the megastation, power grids flickered and fell silent. In that exact moment, human forces that had been hidden in plain sight activated systems the Empire never detected. Entire communication arrays collapsed. Encrypted human signals flooded the local networks, overriding Imperial control. Pre-play sleeper algorithms embedded years prior seized command of defense systems, station protocols, and emergency override mechanisms. The Empire's most secure installation was rendered blind and deaf within seconds. Human warships that had vanished from the Empire's long-range scanners reappeared, decloaking inside the most tightly controlled Imperial sectors. Their positions were impossible. The Empire had deemed these entry points inaccessible. Yet, human vessels were there, fully armed, engines cold, and weapons already locked onto priority targets. The station's external defenses remained unresponsive, overridden by silent human control that had been seeded through innocuous maintenance updates years before. Entire wings of the Empire's elite guard units found their access codes revoked, their command channels jammed. Panic began to spread, but orders from the Imperial chain of command could not reach their intended recipients. In the plaza where the execution was scheduled, hundreds of thousands had gathered to watch. Among them, covert human operatives embedded long ago activated concealed weapons and signal disruptors, cutting off local security responses. The Empire's own troops, positioned to control the crowd, found themselves systematically eliminated by coordinated precision strikes from within the gathering itself. The assassination of key officials began without hesitation. Human infiltration units had spent years embedding themselves in the Empire's civilian and military networks. When the signal came, they acted without delay, surgically removing priority targets. Across the station, critical systems detonated in rapid sequence. Ammunition depots, fuel lines, energy transfer hubs, all targeted with brutal efficiency. The Empire's internal response teams found their deployment routes cut off by security barriers that refused to recognize their credentials. Panic escalated into chaos. Human special forces, long presumed missing in action, emerged from secure areas disguised as Imperial personnel. They moved without resistance, their paths cleared by pre-programmed station overrides that reconfigured corridors and bulkheads to grant them unrestricted access. The Empire's top admirals, planetary governors, and military architects gathered for the grand spectacle were systematically targeted. The assassinations proceeded with mathematical precision. Some died in silent chambers, doors locking behind them just before detonation charges vaporized the compartments. Others were cut down by human operatives who struck before security protocols could even register the intrusion. The Empire's response was disjointed, crippled by its reliance on central command structures that no longer existed. Imperial fleets stationed nearby remained idle, their ships frozen in place, their command bridges paralyzed by software corruption that had been quietly installed over years of unnoticed security breaches. Emergency protocols failed. Long-range distress signals were blocked by jamming fields that had been prepositioned aboard civilian vessels, which were, in truth, heavily modified human warships with concealed weapons arrays. The Empire's entire defensive net unraveled in minutes. The three generals, still in Imperial custody at the moment the attack began, removed their chains with calm, practiced movements. The restraints had never been real. They had been ceremonial, carefully designed by human engineers to appear authentic, but to disintegrate upon precise manipulation. The guards responsible for their transport attempted to react, but the generals moved faster, striking with clinical efficiency. Their extraction teams arrived at the designated points, guided by precise, silent coordination that had been planned down to the second. Throughout the megastation, humans maintained control. Alien commanders attempted to issue new directives, only to find their orders rejected by station systems that now reported exclusively to human overrides. Doors refused to open. Weapons refused to fire. Escape pods launched prematurely, their navigation overridden to direct them into prearranged kill zones patrolled by cloaked human corvettes. The extraction proceeded flawlessly. Human units converged on the generals, providing secure corridors for their withdrawal. They moved through the collapsing station with steady, deliberate pace, encountering minimal resistance. Imperial forces that attempted pursuit were systematically isolated and neutralized. Fire teams of human special forces severed Imperial troop formations with calculated strikes, cutting supply lines, disabling transportation hubs, and collapsing bulkheads to prevent reinforcements from reaching critical paths. Simultaneously, human fleet groups executed precision strikes against Imperial infrastructure across multiple star systems. Command stations, communication arrays, and supply depots were annihilated in synchronized attacks. The Empire's ability to coordinate its remaining forces disintegrated in real time. The loss of leadership, coupled with the collapse of critical communication nodes, ensured that Imperial forces could not mount a cohesive response. Human commanders activated contingency protocols, flooding the station's internal systems with self-replicating viruses designed to corrupt every remaining Imperial database. Defense archives, tactical records, logistics networks, all consumed by cascading digital sabotage. The Empire's centuries of accumulated military intelligence dissolved in minutes. Remaining data cores were systematically targeted and obliterated. As the extraction ships cleared the station's perimeter, human vessels initiated a final barrage, targeting the core reactors. The station's catastrophic failure sequence commenced. Imperial escape shuttles, already crippled by corrupted navigation systems, drifted helplessly into kill zones where human warships eliminated them without hesitation. No survivors would escape to reorganize or retaliate. The generals, aboard their extraction vessel, remained composed as the operation unfolded exactly as planned. The Empire's most fortified location had been gutted from within. The surviving Imperial officers scrambled to broadcast emergency distress calls, but the system's external transmitters had been physically destroyed by covert saboteurs disguised as station engineers. The Empire's cries for help vanished into silence. Human fleets and adjacent systems seized a moment, launching simultaneous strikes against key Imperial supply routes. Starship production facilities were obliterated. Training academies, command stations, and logistical hubs fell in rapid succession. The Empire's fleet commanders, paralyzed by the absence of their high command, failed to regroup or counter the offensive. What remained of the Imperial military fractured under the pressure of mass desertions and conflicting orders from surviving, but isolated sector governors. Human units, leveraging years of covert preparation, systematically dismantled Imperial strongholds. Sleeper agents activated within critical garrisons.